you need to give yourself permission to start and to fail. And you're not going to succeed the first time on everything, and you'll learn. And failing isn't bad. Failing teaches you things.
Hello, art friends, and welcome back to the Art Journey podcast where we explore different artists' journeys and different art topics to help you on your own art path. I'm your host, Alex Agosto, and welcome. I'm so stoked today because it is officially the second week of the podcast. And I am blown away by the amount of support that I've gotten in this short little week. So, by the way, hello, shout out to all of you who have come over from Nina's and Catherine's Instagrams. You guys have been blowing up my Instagram, following me, and downloading the podcast, and I am so thankful to have you guys here. I hope you're having a great time, that you're really enjoying the interviews we're doing here. And I can't wait to show you guys everything that I have for you guys. So, today's person, okay, I already said that weird. The person that I'm interviewing today, you might know her. You're going to notice for a little bit in the podcast that I tend to interview a lot of people with similar styles and aesthetics, just because of the nature of me reaching out to people and who I follow and stuff like that. So you might know her. And if you don't, you definitely will by the end of this. Her name is Felice Regina, but you will know her as iamlunasol. She is an amazing pin designer. She focuses on a lot of kind of fan art type products. She does not only pins, she also does things like keychains and art prints and stickers and all that good stuff that we all love to buy. You might know her particularly for her latest My Hero Academia snack themed keychains. Oh my god, I love them so much, and that anime is so blowing up right now that you've probably seen these pieces by her. She was an amazing person to talk to, and I am so stoked for you guys to listen to this interview. So without further ado, let's get right into this, and let's all give a big warm welcome to iamlunasol, aka Felice Regina. How are you doing today, Felice?
I'm doing good. Just kind of woke up, been chilling on the couch with my cat, stealing its heating pad.
Same. I got up a little bit earlier because, like I was telling you earlier, I have a new bird and he gets overly excited when he knows people are awake. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to tire him out and give him his breakfast and then run into the room so he thinks I left. So he's actually being kind of quiet right now.
Well, birds are tough customers.
Yeah, they will scream at 6 a.m. and they don't care. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, whenever I have the world's worst elevator pitch, and I will just say, hi, I'm like a creative dumpster fire. Oh, there's my cat screaming at me. Is this going to be a problem, Batman?
Batman.
Okay, yes, he's a black cat. But so creative dumpster fire, and that's because I've just kind of been all over the place, and hang on. It's been a journey, and it's really hard to like give an elevator description of myself because it's really like it's like a Studio Ghibli movie. It's long and winding and non-linear.
I can relate to that. So, when it comes to art, I know that usually everyone kind of gives the same answer where they started when they were a kid, right? So, what particularly when you were a kid really, really got you into art?
I can't say what got me into it, but I do have like an extra layer of drawing since a kid, which is a really great story that my dad likes to tell. When I was in preschool, they would do like this little tests to make sure kids are like on track for development stuff. And so one of the things they would do is they give them like a picture of an incomplete stick figure person where it's like maybe
Mm-hmm.
missing an arm or a leg, and they tell the kid to complete it. And you were just supposed to fill in like the arm and the leg. And they said when they gave it to me, I drew an arm, a leg, I put 5 fingers on each hand, I put 5 toes on each foot, I gave it a face, I gave it hair, I drew earrings, and they're like, she even gave it a belly button.
Oh my
So
god.
like I guess that's
You
just
were
to
ahead
feel like,
of
all
your
right,
time.
you're on a different level, this kid. Um, yeah, like I just was always drawing. I can't remember a time where I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't say what specifically made me want to draw.
Yeah, I feel like that's something very common with artists because I can relate. I can't really pinpoint what made me love drawing, but that was always my favorite activity.
And it was definitely like fueled by whatever I was into. Like I know a lot of little girls go through. It's either like a horse phase, a dolphin phase, or like a dog phase. And
Yep.
I think I went through horses. Definitely went through horses, but I also kind of went through a dolphin phase too. And so, like, whatever animal I was really into, I would like be obsessed with drawing. Like, I had these like
Yeah.
how to draw horses books, and where it's like draw the circle, draw the rusting horse. So, yeah, I was always like I was really into drawing animals as a kid because I loved animals.
Mhm.
And we went to Disney World when I was probably like 7, and at the I think they call it Disney Studios now, but it was MGM back then.
Yeah.
We went to this one part of the tour where they have actual animators, and they had an animator like teach you how to draw like Mickey Mouse and stuff. And
Mhm.
that particular animator, I remember his name is Oliver Inston, and he specifically was in charge of animating um, Kala, which was the gorilla that was Tarzan's mom.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and like I remember at the gift store, I bought like a how to draw Bambi characters, and then we ran into him in the parking lot at the end of the day, and he like autographed it for me.
Oh my god, that's
And
amazing.
so like that was like one of my like treasured things as a kid. Was like meeting like someone I was like, they're a real artist. They draw cartoons. They make Disney.
Do you still have that by any chance?
I believe it's on my bookshelf
Oh
still.
my god. That yeah, you gotta hang on to that.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he's done like I don't know why the gorilla is the one thing I remember. I'm sure he's done plenty
Yeah,
of
of
other characters,
course.
but that's the one my brain latched onto because it was like a new movie at the time.
Yeah, of course. And since you were so heavily into art as a kid, when do you think it was that you started to take it seriously? Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Well, it was kind of weird because growing up, everyone was like, "Oh, you're going to be an artist when you grow up. You're going to be an artist," and I was say, "Yeah." And then like my parents are like very type A. Like
Mm-hmm.
my mom is a doctor, my dad was an accountant, but he was a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
And so like after like a certain age where I was like, we're in their minds like I'm on my way to being a little adult, probably like 9, 10. Like when I would show them pictures, they would say like, "Oh, that's nice, but you need to think about what you want to do for a real job."
Mm.
And so it was like very much in my mind that like, "Oh, you cannot do this. This is not an option." And like for some reason in my mind, I was like, "I'm going to be a journalist," and they're like, "That's not better." Um, so like I was kind of like I was just like, "Oh, I guess I'll like figure it out as I go." And by the time I graduated, was getting ready to graduate high school, I was like, I don't know, and I was like, I'll just do accounting like my dad because I'm good at
Mm-hmm.
math and stuff. And I started off as an accounting major in college, and I was like, good at it, but I hated it. I was bored out of my
Yeah.
mind, and I like, decided to switch to being like double major in business. And then like last semester of college, I was like, I'm just gonna have a business minor and be an art major. So like I knew I was gonna do something related. I just realized that I couldn't do this other boring stuff. Like it was just gonna make me want to jump off a cliff. So I
Mm-hmm.
figured like, okay, I'm going to do some kind of creative thing. I have no idea what. Because
Mm-hmm.
it was more of like a necessity because I just hated everything else.
Yeah, I can relate. And so when you switched to the art major, were your parents supportive of it?
They kind of didn't have a choice because it was so late in the game. And
Yeah.
I also so the reason honestly, the reason I switched was because I was taking the final capstone class for business,
Mm-hmm.
and I hated it, and I was bored out of my mind.
Oh.
And like I took the first exam, and it was like a blue book exam, and I wrote two sentences and realized I knew nothing. And I was like, well, I guess I'm withdrawing from this class, and I did. And so I'm like, I was one class short of getting a business degree, and at the last minute, I'm like, nah. So they I was like, I'm like, well, I don't need a business major. I'm not going to be doing like that's not what I want to pursue anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that I rationalized it that way. And
Yeah, which is not bad at all. I know I've heard these kinds of stories a lot, people who start off trying to do the pragmatic thing and then giving up and be like, no, let me do the thing I wanted to do.
oh yeah, there was a lot of trying to do the pragmatic thing because my first job. So I got after I graduated, I was
Hmm.
like, well, I need to get a job, and so
Yeah.
I like kind of randomly stumbled upon this job as a package designer for like a pot and
Mhm.
pan company. And
Wow.
it was incredibly boring. It was like it's a lot of Photoshop work, a lot of
Mm,
like
yeah.
I we described our job as putting pictures on boxes. Uh, wasn't a lot of exciting stuff, but it was like at least like I could use Photoshop at work.
Yeah.
That was my job, and while it wasn't necessarily creative work, it was not accounting. So
Hmm. So that was the first job you got out of college?
yeah, it was my okay. So it was pretty much for the most part my first and only job because I worked there for a year and a half, and
Hmm.
then I like had it was just going downhill. It was like a very um, toxic work environment. It was
Hmm.
like very clear that there was not much room for um, promotion and stuff. So
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like a particularly bad day, and I ended up like rage quitting, crying, shoving my
Oh
stuff
my
into a
god.
box, going like I'm never coming back here. And it was like yeah, it was kind of dramatic. And after that, I was like, well, I started looking for other similar jobs,
Hmm.
and I wasn't finding too much that seemed interesting. And what I had been into at the time was while at that job, I met a woman who also does fabric design, and I
Oh,
became
okay.
super interested in that. And so I decided, okay, I want to pursue this. And at the time, my husband and I were living with my parents because he had been in the army and he was using his GI Bill to go back to school. And they
Mm,
were like,
okay.
I guess they were kind of like I feel like they probably didn't have a lot of trust in me being able to hold down an office job. So they're like,
Yeah.
instead of getting an apartment, they're like, why don't you live with us? Because I feel like they were probably worried I was going to get fired.
Yeah.
And then, my husband's in school full time, and what am I going to do?
Mm,
So
yeah.
we were living with my parents. We didn't really have, I had been saving money the entire time I was working. And so I was like, okay, so I have time to figure this out. And so I started pursuing fabric design full time, and then I got a contract with Wyndham Fabrics. Um,
Yeah, I saw that was so cool.
it was very interesting, and I did that. Um, I launched my first collection in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
and my third collection is on wholesale now. It's going to be shipping to stores next month, I believe, and I have
Yeah.
another fourth line coming out in spring. But
That's amazing.
yeah, so that was like my main thing
Yeah.
for the last few years. But towards the end of 2016, I started
Mhm.
doing the pins, and
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how, like, you made that jump from fabric, from like doing photoshopping for this pots and pans business to doing fabric design to now doing your pins.
yeah, it's you see the non-linear progression. Um, it's more like jumping from random rocks to rocks. Uh,
Hey, whatever works.
yeah, so like once I had the fabric out because it's not like with pins where you design it yourself, you manufacture it yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
licensed from a
Yeah.
manufacturer, and they're like the gatekeeper. They decide how much is released every year, which just determines how much money you can make every year. And pretty
Mm.
much like it's different per company, but my particular manufacturer, they only do 4 releases a year, and it's incredibly rare for any designer to release more than two. Like they don't do that
Yeah.
And preferably they like to keep designers on one collection a year because what a lot of people don't realize is yes, by doing more than one collection, that's theoretically the possibility for more money. What
Mm-hmm.
actually ends up happening is your new collection has more demand and it makes your old collection
Oh.
less in demand, and so it forces it out of print, so you end up making less money per collection.
Yeah, because now the money got stretched over two collections.
Yeah, so they find it's just better to keep it at one per year. So but that also puts a very real cap on your income from it for the year. So I was
Yeah.
fabric design is like not the kind of thing that most people who do it have other streams of income. It's very rare for anyone to make all of their
Just
money from
that they're
yeah.
yeah.
So I was like looking for other things to do um, to increase my income, and
Mm-hmm.
I when me and my husband went on our belated honeymoon in 2012, we went to Disney World and we got really into the pin trading and pin collecting.
Yeah.
And then, so being on Instagram, I saw like lots of people, artists starting to create their own pins. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. I want to do that. And I had a Kickstarter for two designs, and one was based on this little moon bunny from my first fabric collection.
Yeah.
And so they were tied into the fabric in that way. And
Yeah, that's interesting.
after the initial two pins, like I did another one and another one, and so I just kept doing it, and it eventually got to the point where like my side business just like exploded and took over, and I started doing illustrated stickers. I started making art prints. I started doing fan art stuff, and it became like the center stage for me.
Yeah. I actually know you for your pin designs. I often see your pieces like when collectors post their pictures with like all the related pins and themes.
Hmm.
I tend to always see at least one of your pieces.
Oh,
And
that's
the one that really got me into you and I start following you was your Miss Snooty Cat.
Oh yeah, Lily. I love. I just okay. So I Kiki's Delivery Service is my favorite movie of all time. I think it is like a great analogy for any kind of creative artist. The idea of hitting a wall and like not knowing what to do and questioning
Mhm.
yourself.
Very relatable.
And just always trying to figure out like who am I? Like what am I supposed to do with my life? Is this correct? Is this enough? And
Yeah.
um, I I love Phil Hartman voicing Gigi, and I love the part where he sees Lily for the first time, and she's like, "Hmm." And he's like, "Pardon me, Miss Snooty Cat."
Yes.
Because
That part always makes me laugh.
well, yeah, and like my thing, it's kind of like unintentional, but it always seems to come up is whenever I do fan art related pins, I think of like, okay, I've seen a million pins of this. I want to do something that people don't do pins of, and for me, there's
Mhm.
like tons of Gigi pins, and I'm like, well, no one's done a pin of Lily that I've seen.
Yeah.
So let's do Lily, but let's like put in Gigi's, nickname for her, Miss Snooty Cat.
Oh my god. Yes. And I love that because you're right. Usually I feel like whenever people do fan art in general, not just like products, a lot of people do the main characters and it's like that's great, but like I feel like people who are fans of things like to see the less common more obscure references because
Oh,
it's way more
definitely.
fun.
I think the perfect example of that is like I love My Hero Academia, and I do
Yes.
lots of
Oh
My
my
Hero
god.
Academia fan art products. And I have a friend who, this is the crazy thing. She and I went to the same university, which is a fairly small university, about like
Mhm.
2,000 undergrad. We were in the same year, same time. We never met each other while we were there
What?
because apparently what we were both doing is hiding in our apartments reading manga and sewing, because she is a full-time convention artist. That's her Instagram is Lolstasia. Her brand is Ugly Plants. She's also a
Yes.
filmmaker. So we went to the same school. We never met each other while there. We only met after I started with doing cons. But
Oh my god.
she has a Ita bag for Shinso from My Hero. And I was like, why are you so obsessed with like this character who's like barely in the show? And she's like, don't question me. And I just like, okay. And so when I was making My Hero snack charms, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I gotta make one for her. So I made like a Shinso keychain. It was mainly just for her. And so many Shinso fans like came out of the woodwork, and I'm like, they are ride or die. They see a Shinso thing and they will support you and buy it instantly. He's like
Heck
one of the
yeah.
best sellers. And so I'm like, okay, here's my joke now is that if you make like an obscure character, it's either going to end up being like one of your best sellers or one of your worst sellers, and there's
It's
never an in
so
between.
true. I know. I feel like that's how those things always go, but I feel like the risk tends to be pretty good because just because like you said, you can never find those things
Yeah,
and
so when people are like, "Oh my god, I can never," I get so many comments on like my Moira stuff from Overwatch. People always say like, "No one
mm,
ever makes Moira stuff, and if they do, it's not like cute." And um, I tend to like some like there's this meme where it's like a bunch of stick figures and it says like
mhm.
protagonist, and then the person like puts their hands and parts them, and there's like this fat one sitting on the ground. It says some gremlin, and they're like, "I like that one."
Yeah.
And that's how I tend to be too. I'm like, I like that one gremlin background character.
Yes, I can completely relate to that too. I'll like that. I'll like, oh, it's like in Avatar The Last Airbender, the cabbage seller.
My cabbages!
Yes, like he was supposed to, if I remember correctly, he was really supposed to just be
Be in
like
one
this
episode.
passing character. And then people fell in love with him so much that they were like, well, let's just stick him in another episode because it would be funny. And people went crazy and they were
Now
like,
he's
okay, let's
immortalized.
just make this like an ongoing thing. And I feel like that's just like such a good example of like people always end up liking the character that you don't even think is going to make an impact.
Yeah, just the memeable characters.
Yeah. And so on that topic of those snack charms, which like I'm in love, my boyfriend and I like we found My Hero very randomly cuz we started seeing memes about it and then we're like, "Oh, let's try it." Cuz he's way more into anime than I am. I'm actually pretty picky. But I fell in love with this series and I feel like I've had trouble finding good merch for it that's not super tacky or very, very boy style. So like when I saw your snack charms, I was like, oh my god, now I have to like I need to narrow this down. I can't get them all. Where am I gonna put them? But how do you come up with the ideas for the products that you're going to make? Are you the kind of person where you kind of pre-plan either a theme or a collection, or do you just kind of wing it as you go?
I I wouldn't say I do like a ton of planning, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about it because I am very much a consumer of fan art and I love seeing it
Mm-hmm.
all and I would buy it all if I could. But a lot of the times, um, I see like a lot of times people draw like just the character, and for me, I'm like, it's cool and all, but I want it to have like a gimmick to it. I want it to have the extra
Mm-hmm.
layer, something that's like, oh, it's not just a little chibi drawing of Deku. It's like Deku in a kigurumi, and he's a bunny. Like yes, and they're
Yes.
all in kigurumis of different animals. Like I love seeing like people make associations between characters and other things, and
Yeah.
like coming up with these like a related series. And for me, finding the gimmick is what makes sets it apart from everything else because otherwise it's just another chibi. And when I
Mm-hmm.
was coming up with it, I can't remember how I started doing it. It was I was looking at I wanted to do something for All Might, but I was like
Yeah.
he I wanted to make it cute, but it's hard to make that like super serious face
I
really
know.
cute. And I was thinking about like the red, white, and blue super American. What's super American? And I had been doing the cupcake pins, which were one thing. And then I was like,
Mm,
well, I
yeah.
want to do something, but with their faces. And so I started thinking of like the red, white, and blue rocket pops, or firework pops.
Ooh, yeah, yeah.
And so he was the first one I came up with a box of the popsicles. And then I was like, well, what other snacks could I make? And it was became like this game of matching their
Oh.
personalities or their quirks to snacks, or like what packaging made the most sense. And like the more I start
Yeah.
thinking about it, like some of them are super intuitive. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And then
Like the animal crackers.
yeah, the animal crackers for Coda, who speaks to animals, or like Cero's quirk is tape, so he's bubble tape. Um,
Yeah.
but some are like there's a few good options. Like for Kirishima, since his quirk is hardening, at first I was thinking of Jawbreakers, but then I was like, I
Mm,
don't feel like he would be Candy. He's obsessed with being manly, and I was like, what
that's
else
true.
is like hard? And I thought of beef jerky, and I'm like, that's
Oh my
manly.
god.
That's manly. It's just hard meat. And
Yeah.
so and then some of them are super hard. Like right now, I'm trying to think of one because I just we finished season 3, and we were
Mm-hmm.
introduced to the big three, and I'm trying to think of one for Mirio, and that
Oh.
one's proving to be really hard based on his quirk,
Yeah.
or so it might end up just being a snack that's kind of based on his personality or his appearance. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like
I can see that one being hard.
Momo was also a little difficult for creation. Like the best I could come up with was like
Ooh.
popcorn because it like
Yeah.
kind of
Oh, that's
created from
yeah.
different. So it can be challenging, but most of them are pretty intuitive.
Yeah, so it sounds like your approach is you try to find one good idea
And
and then roll with
yeah,
it.
the way I describe it, I was like, you find your horse and you beat it to death, and you don't stop beating it until it stops spitting out money.
That's such a good analogy for
So
that.
I like so with the snacks, I like didn't stop with my hero. I did them for Overwatch. Now I've done them for Dragon Maid, and I'm trying
Mm.
to think of other like because there's lots of series that I like, but they're not really necessarily as suited to the snacks. Like I love Made in Abyss, but like it's kind of a dark show. It would be kind of
Oh yeah.
out of character, or shows that aren't as like I'm the other anime I'm getting into in manga series is Wochokoi Love is Hard for an Otaku, and it's like
Mm.
it's not as popular, and it's just like an everyday slice of life office
Yeah.
romance type show, so
Mhm.
it's less geared towards stuff like that. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
It's funny because I feel like you do kind of inject that little bit of humor into your work. Is that something you like to do on purpose?
Oh yeah, if something doesn't make me laugh, I really have a hard time enjoying it. I'm like always trying, like, I don't want to, everything that I can make funny, I will make funny.
Yeah. And I feel like that's one of the things that really draws people to your work because you always have kind of an extra layer to it that both involves humor and also you kind of do a nod to the fan where you make stuff that you have to be a fan to get it, you
Yeah,
know?
I love finding those little jokes because it's like when someone, most people won't get it, but when they get it, they're like, "You're my person. I like you," and it helps you kind of find people who get you and get the same things you do. It's a little bit of like a little test.
Yeah, and actually, this something like this came up in my interview with Nina from Me So Happy, where doing that, where you kind of create something where you kind of give an outlet for different people to like be like, oh, you like that, and I like that too. It's such a great community builder, right?
Yes, it is. And also, like, I think my favorite thing to do is when I have had so many people message me and say, like, oh, I didn't watch this series, but like you post so much cute art about it, I had to start watching it, and now I love it. Um, I think the best ones are when they say they start watching My Hero Academia, and not only they start watching, they like binge watch the first like 2 hour, like, and they're caught up. Because
Yeah,
of my artwork, I'm like, I just made you put a significant time investment into a show
I
because you
know.
want
That's
thought my snack
amazing.
charms are cute. I That's like the most flattering thing for me because it's like one thing to just be like, oh, I don't know what this is and I'll buy it, but I don't know what this is. I will spend 20 hours watching this show and buy it. That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's amazing. And so I know that from your jump from fabric design to like having this hustle with your pin business, how did you grow that community? Was it from scratch or did people that knew your other work came and started supporting this, or how did you go about building this community?
It was a little of everything because at the time, like I've always had Instagram as my primary base of operation.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all these followers from the fabric and sewing and whatnot. And my first pin was tied into my fabric collection. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the second and third weren't so much, but then the next Kickstarter I did, um, maybe it was the next one. I think it was next one after that. I had a quilt shop pin, and there was like a cat with
Yeah.
a pile of quilts. So they were like, I had some sewing related pins, so they were tied in. So it was kind of like the Venn diagram of people who are into pins and into sewing. And then I
Yeah.
started just doing unrelated, and so some of those people are still into just pins in general, but people who don't sew started coming in from wherever they come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like I started notice I okay, so I used to have one of those apps that like shows you when someone unfollows you, and I
Yeah.
do, 0 out of 10 do not recommend. It will like mess with your self confidence so much. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it. Um, because I was noticing like the more I was posting, just like pin designs and pin photos and other and like things that were not explicitly related to my fabric or sewing,
Mm-hmm.
those people stopped following me, and they were
Oh.
dropping. There was a period of times where my following was like I would post a non fabric related photo, and I would lose like 10 people at a time, 20 people at a time, and they
Wow.
were just falling off like flies. And I was starting
Mm-hmm.
to like freak out and think like, oh, should I separate my accounts? Should I make an account just for this and one for fabric? But I was like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
like that idea of having to like segment who I am, because I'm a
Yeah.
person and I don't need to like develop social media multiple personalities. It's like
Mm.
you get me or you get none of me. And that's something I've
Yeah.
always been really like I know I do things that are sometimes I know from a business perspective are not the smartest, but I'm just stubborn and I
Mm-hmm.
refuse on like an emotional level to go along with it. And that's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things. So it took a while to like one of my friends, she was like, "Oh, well, I wouldn't worry about it because it's just showing you who actually cares about you and your content regardless of what it is,
Mm-hmm.
and those people are just flaky, so just forget about them." And I said, and she's like, "Also delete that app." So
Yes.
I did. And it's like my audience has grown significantly faster since I've stopped like worrying about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm like, there's people I know who like go from like 1,000. I knew someone who went from 1,000 followers to like 100K in less than a year, and
Wow.
um, I don't know if that's like being lucky or that's being like consistent, but I don't like,
Mm-hmm.
even if I could do that, I'd rather just be post what I want to post and not just tailor everything to for the sake
Mm-hmm.
of gaining a bigger audience.
Yeah, and I feel like that approach works because essentially what you're doing is you are basically putting your genuine
Well,
self.
yeah, it's authenticity, and I watched a
Yeah.
really good YouTube video. I think her YouTube channel is Lindsay Ellis. A friend pointed
Mm-hmm.
me to her video about it's called like manufacturing authenticity on social media or YouTube or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting, and it's really really a good watch. It's a kind of a long video, but I recommend it. It talks about the idea of being authentic online, and do we know when someone is truly being authentic and how much can we trust. And like I don't like faking it. I
Mm-hmm.
and there's some degree that as a business person you have to like, you can't tell every idiot they're being an idiot, because
Yeah.
like then they'll be like, I'm not spending money at your store, you just called me stupid. So
True.
like sometimes you'll get messages where you're like, oh my god, but you have to swallow it and be nice,
Yeah.
and that's just the way things are. But at the same time, like I don't suffer fools. I if
Mm-hmm.
I say what I think, and I'll like try to be as tactful as possible about it. But if it's the honest truth, it's the honest truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like what they say about it's so much easier to tell the truth than to try to keep up and remember all the little lies.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of like that with growing a following, like it's better to put your real self out there because that's much easier to maintain than a carefully, super carefully curated
Like,
persona.
my
Because
yeah, my friend, one of my really good friends with another pin maker, her Instagram is unicorn paper, unicorn underscore paper.
mm-hmm.
Her name's also Alex, but
Oh.
we refer to like writing captions where it's like very carefully crafted, we and all that, the whole like Instagram personality, we just say to each other like sparkle sparkle, got to put those sparkle emojis on everything, got to make everything super happy, and we'll read our captions to each other in like this silly valley girl voice
Yeah.
over it, like, hey you guys, I can't believe how much support you've given me, sparkle emoji, and stuff like that. And we're just like, when we read our captions, we're like, girl, you need to chill the sparkle sparkle. Just be a real person. Stop it and keep each other in check.
Yeah. And so when you kind of built this community and it's your business, how did you go about it? So one of the things that I hear a lot of people worry about is that they don't know if to start making products first or build a community first and then start making products. What approach did you take?
I had the community first, then products, but that wasn't by design. That's just because of the direction I was coming from. When I started my Instagram, I was not yet a fabric designer. I wanted to
Mhm.
be. And then when I became a fabric designer, that was part of it, but I was also just posting stuff that I made in general. And then when I
Mhm.
decided, um, I had an Etsy in college selling with completely unrelated stuff, and I decided that I wanted to reopen it once I got my first two pins, and I wanted to make other stuff
Yeah.
for it. And so I started making stickers and all that, and so then I started having products, and now it's like mostly stuff I've made. Um, so that's just how it happened. It wasn't by any design. There's plenty of accounts I follow that started with products first, and like there's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever
Mhm.
way you want to do it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times it's just the natural progression of how things happen, like for you naturally you just had the community first, but some people might naturally have a really good idea for a product before having the
Yeah,
community.
and I think I have no evidence to back this up. Um, Part of me wonders if you're starting your account knowing you're a business and you're going to sell things, if it might be a little bit harder to gain an audience, because sometimes people like are initially like, I don't know if I want to say they're like resistant to, but they don't see you. They want to see a person. They want to follow a person rather than following, pin business, you know, limited or whatever. And
Yeah.
so if you're like presenting yourself as like some sort of like sterile, non-individual human
Mm.
company, I wonder if it would be harder than
Yeah.
coming about it from a more human point of view. I have no
I
idea,
I
but
do get that.
I tend to wonder. So
It is quite possible because I come from an extremely corporate background. My job before now, I used to work at Bed Bath and Beyond on their
oh
website.
wow,
Yeah, I used to
I used to
manage
work
the
with Bed
bedding.
Bath and Beyond at the Pot and Pan Company.
What? That's such a crazy coincidence. But
You
yes,
might have seen
and one
my
of the
pots and pans.
it's actually quite possible. I was in the bedding department, but I
Oh,
had a friend that worked in the kitchen
mhm,
department, so like sometimes I had to jump in and help them.
mhm.
But one of the things at like big companies like that is that whenever they're running their social medias and stuff, they try to strategically um try to make the posts seem like they're coming from a
Oh
person
yeah,
and not stale.
I didn't have, when I was in college and I was a business major, it wasn't like specifically accounting. I was more interested in
Mhm.
marketing, and my big thing that I got super interested in was relationship marketing, and that is, people don't businesses are made up of people. And if
Mhm.
you act like you are people, people respond to people more than they do to some corporate entity. And if you build on
Exactly.
that, and give a personality, like for example, like Wendy's Twitter, like holy crap, Wendy's
Yes, they're
Twitter
so
wouldn't have
funny.
been so expensive. Not expensive. Would have been so popular if it wasn't so seeming like just a genuinely funny individual human being, not a team. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
there's probably I think there was one woman on it, but I'm sure there was at least a few people in that department who helped and contributed. I don't know, but
Yeah.
like thinking it's one sassy person is just so appealing.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree. And I think a lot of businesses are catching up to that. And what I mean, in small businesses, the successful ones know that, but I feel like newbies come in and they think they have to create this weirdly
They and you
stale
what they do the most that drives me
persona.
like that drives me up the wall is like
Mm.
one person will start a business and then on all of their messaging they'll say we when it's just them
Yeah.
because they think it makes them sound more official or legit. And I'm like, don't say we if it's just you, because not only is it not true, um, it
Yeah.
gives people the expectation that, oh, you're a company with employees and I should be getting that kind of service. And if you're like not able to keep up, say you are can't ship out an order like the same day, and they'll expect more from you than you can provide as a small business. But if you're like upfront that I'm a one person thing. This is how it is, and I'm doing
Yeah.
my best. They're more likely to be flexible with you. And
And also, something people don't realize is that also when you make yourself sound bigger than you are, people they're not cognizantly thinking of this, but they expect you to maybe be cheaper
that's for sure
because
a thing.
you know,
Or they
more
expect
people are
you,
willing to buy from an individual and invest a lot of money into supporting someone that like a person they like than to support a
or they
business that
expect more. What's the word I want to use? More generous compensation in terms of customer service. Like, for
Mhm.
example, I had a can of cat food explode in my face the other day because it was improperly canned, and I emailed Fancy Feast, and
Yeah.
of course they're sending me a bunch of like free coupons. Like, if it was one person selling me their gourmet cat food, I wouldn't expect them to send me a bunch of free stuff.
Exactly. I feel like for things like that, just be honest about your operation. And honestly, I think in the end, it works out for you more because I feel like people are more empathetic and sympathetic to one person running like this giant operation than if you make it seem like you have a lot of people helping you because then when things go wrong, they might not feel as bad,
Yeah, it's a lot of
because
managing people's expectations, but it's
yes, very.
also I think the authenticity factor comes into it. Like, I don't understand the desire to put on this act that makes me seem quote more corporate. I don't find
Mhm.
that more interesting. I just find that kind of boring. I so
Yeah.
I don't understand the appeal of that. I wouldn't do it. Never wanted to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's what someone wants to do, it's like go
You
ahead,
do
but I
you.
personally yeah, and
Or we, as you seem to want to say.
I know. And it's like what I've told cuz I have one friend that does do that with her business and what I tell her is like you can go ahead and do that, but you need to just realize that you should maybe try the other way because it might be more beneficial to you. And again, like she runs a very high end business, but it's still run only by her. And it's like you need to make sure people still understand that when you say we, it's only you
Mhm.
because you don't want it to blow up if people have this weird picture in their mind that you have this giant office in
Yeah,
Manhattan
it's
with like a
because
billion people
we
working.
can just be two people, but it could also be 50. It's very
Yeah.
vague, and it would be different if it's like I almost wish there were like different pronouns for like connotating like exactly how many. Like, you could say a few or several, and it gives you a better idea. But like it's just nebulous.
Mhm. And then so going back to kind of your products and keeping everything authentic. When you started off small and you kind of thought, "You know what? I can do a pin business. This is something that I I personally, as a person, liked this after being inspired on a trip. What were your first steps when you finally decided, you know what, this is something I want to do, but how do I do it? You know,
Uh,
how did you start researching into pins?
Google is Bay, and I mean, like, I don't understand, like, some of these days, like, I'm amazed by how many people, like, don't just, like, Google everything. Like, no, there's this
Mhm.
amazing thing, like, Google it. And so I just started, like, Googling, enamel pins, how to get enamel pins made, where to get them made, how are they made, everything
Mhm.
under the sun. Um, and you don't have to get it right on the first time. I didn't.
Mhm.
I started working. Um, well, for starters, I think I did do some good things good right out of the bat, and that is, doing vector artwork, and I knew that would be
Yeah.
beneficial, so I did that. I knew Pantones were the standard, but I didn't have. I had a Pantone book, but it was insanely old to the degree that I don't even know if it was
Mm.
worth having. Um, so I
Yeah.
just kind of like guessed, and thankfully, I'm not like the most obsessive person when it comes to color matching. So if it's like
Yeah.
in the realm of that color, I'm fine. I did
Mhm.
eventually get a new color book, um,
Yeah.
but there at the time that I was getting into it, it wasn't as big as it is now. So there weren't as many resources from other creators. Like Pink Samurai has like an amazing YouTube series now.
Yes,
Um,
she
like
does.
I wrote like a short blog post that was just like some introductory stuff. Um, but so there
Mhm.
was less from the creator perspective that I could find. It was more of from the manufacturing companies, like showing, oh, this is how you set up your file for us. But
Okay.
also like just like looking on Facebook groups for like Artist Alley International, at like researching enamel pins in there and seeing what other people said about their experiences, and just keeping things in mind, um, in
Mhm.
design and production process. So just lots and lots and lots of research, and then just
Mhm.
trying things. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to make sure I have the best manufacturer or the best this, the best that." And I'm like, there is no best. You just have to try things and see if they work, and it's a risk, but you can't make money without taking risks.
Yeah, and it's funny because people who want to start businesses, and actually, you know what? Let's be real. Anyone wanting to do anything for the first time, and I think this has to do with social media. They want to do it perfectly the first time. They want to be experts from the beginning. And I myself have been
Oh yeah,
guilty of that plenty of times.
you're like,
But like you
how
said,
dare I not do this thing perfectly the very first time I attempted it? This is not fair.
exactly. But it's just not realistic, you know. I think in the end you're much better off by creating a very messy first version of something where you can experiment and mess up all you want and learn rather than trying to perfectly do
Oh
it
yeah, and you'll
well the first
definitely
time.
like you'll love your first pin when you get it, and then in a year or two you'll look at it and you're like, oh my god, that was kind of crap. Um, Not because it was like bad quality, just because your design skill has gotten better. For example, and there's things you
Mhm.
learn. Like when I'm first pin was actually two pins, and one of them was it was a moon, and it said nothing phases me, and there was a section with black and a section with white, and I didn't know any better, and I requested black glitter, and I've learned since that black glitter is like not really a thing. Like they put like silver glitter on black enamel, and
Mm.
then it made the silver metal, the words, it made the words very hard to read.
Oh.
And I did not know that, and that is not something I could have like I had to learn the hard way. There wasn't like anyone who would have like just magically appeared like poof and told me that. It was just part of
Mhm.
the learning process. And I look, there's another thing, like my other pin was the comet shooting star moon bunny thing, and there was like
Mhm.
these sections of the metal that were like silver medal that like I in areas that shouldn't have been. I was like, why is it like this? And they're like, oh, it's because of the stamping process. There's like they can't get in these tight little spaces, and if you wanted to not have those
Oh,
little fill areas, you need to use this other process called injected alloy. I didn't even know that was a thing. So
yeah.
like you learn things, and you'll continue to get better, and it'll be okay.
Mhm. Yeah, just like we've said, just do it. Just
Just
do
do
it,
it.
like
It's fine.
the meme. uh, you're better off just starting instead of putting it off, because I feel like that's something I hear a lot of young artists, and not even young artists, but people who kind of want to start
There's the fear
businesses.
of starting is I think the worst,
Yes.
and I'm really fortunate that I had someone confront me on that very early on.
Mhm.
When I was in college, um, an alumni from our school had gone on to become an art director at Firaxis Games. So he was
Wow.
a game director on game design, and he came to teach a lecture, but this department selected four students that got to have lunch with him, and there was three boys in the computer science department and me, the art major. And
Wow.
at the time, I was really into games, and like I said, I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, so if I wanted to wanted to get into this field, how do I become like a game designer? And he's like, simple, you start designing games. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, but like you want like you're like okay, you want to be a pin designer? Start designing pins. Start making pins. Pretend you're already one. Just
Mhm.
do it. Just start doing it. There's not like this person that's going to show up and give you permission or explain everything
Mhm.
to you, and you don't need a
Yeah, you
mentor.
kind of have to give yourself your own
Yeah, you
permission.
need to give yourself permission to start and to fail, and
Mhm.
you're not going to succeed the first time on everything, and you'll learn. And failing isn't bad. Failing teaches you things.
Yeah. Exactly. How else do you
Oh
learn
yeah,
if not by
one of my
failing?
like things I quote all the time is Randy Pausch, the last lecture, and one of he has so many quotable lines in that. And one of them is, experience is what you get when you didn't get what you wanted.
Mhm.
So
It's
you
so
get a lot of
true.
experience along the way when things don't go
Mhm.
properly.
No, and that's so true. And so do you have any other advice you would give to someone who wants to make art their career, but they either don't know where to start, or maybe they have started but they are only doing it part-time? Like, what advice do you have for someone who wants to make art their living?
Lots. For starters, you need to find other friends who are going to give you 100% honest feedback, because a lot of people
Mhm.
tend to surround themselves with sycophants and people who are just going to blow sunshine up their butts and tell them, oh, that's so cute, I love it, every time they make something. But that doesn't help you. That doesn't help you grow.
Mhm.
Your goal is to
It's
grow
true.
and to push yourself, and you can't do that when everyone's telling you how great you are. You need to have a friend who you can show this to, and you're like, and they're like, oh, I think you should do this, like this needs to be changed, I don't think this looks very good. um, Maybe try
Mhm.
this. Like you don't want a friend who tells you everything looks like crap and doesn't say anything else. You want someone who gives you feedback. And finding a friend who maybe is on the same journey as you is
Yeah.
very helpful, to have someone who you can bounce off of, or in a group of people. Like I have my big side wing woman is my friend Alex Unicorn Paper, but we also have a little
Mhm.
group on Instagram, a chat group that is, we call it the big girl panties group, because we're not afraid to put on our big girl panties, and we're not going to get our feelings hurt if someone says that this doesn't look very good. The whole idea
Mhm.
is challenging ourselves and trying something hard. So finding someone who gives you honest feedback and not being afraid of it, and getting sensitive about it, because I've met like so many people who say they want feedback, and you tell them, oh, this doesn't look good, you need to try do this to make it look better, and they're like, they get really mad. They take it really personally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I didn't say you're a garbage person and a garbage artist. I just said you asked for feedback and I gave it to you. And if you don't want to change it, you
Yeah.
didn't want to listen to it, why did you ask for it?
Yeah, I guess the problem a lot of, and I think this is very present in creatives, they can't separate their art from themselves.
Yeah,
And
I like it's I don't think you ever can completely do it because you put so much of yourself into it, but you
mm-hmm,
also need to be able to look at it and think everything you see at a store someone designed, and you don't see
mm-hmm,
that, box of cereal as a human. Like you don't see the artist behind it. It's a box of cereal. So
mm-hmm,
you need to be able to say this isn't me. This is just a thing I made, and anything I make can, just the way you cook something and it tastes kind of bad, same thing can happen with
yeah.
art. It's not your fault. You tried your best, but you can fix it.
Yeah, and just because something you made maybe wasn't everyone's cup of tea, it doesn't mean that those same people don't like you as a person. They just don't like that one thing you
Oh no.
made,
Oh, of
and you can
course
just
not.
learn
And
from
it's
that.
like I have friends who are artists, and I objectively don't like their work. It's just not my style. It's fine. Like
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't ever like it because it's just not my aesthetic. But that doesn't mean I don't respect them and think what they're doing is valid and impressive. It just means it's just not my
Mm-hmm.
thing, and it's not going to be for everyone.
Yeah. No, it's completely true, and you kind of have to learn to be okay
Yeah,
with
you
that.
definitely have to learn to be okay with that. What else? You having okay, so a lot of people think being a professional artist just comes down to your skill at art, and it's really not it. I'm pretty lucky in that I started off
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be an accountant, and so I have like
Yeah.
this almost business degree that encompassed, finance, accounting, management, and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you don't have any of that education, you're going to have some catching up to do, or you're going to be spending money to hire people to do it for you. In terms of
Of
keeping your
course.
books and navigating those kind of situations, paying your taxes, which is very important. Um,
Yes.
and this isn't stuff that you need to go and ask someone, "How do I do my taxes?" No, you can Google this stuff. Any question you will ever have, I can almost assure you that Google can get you somewhat closer to the answer than when you started.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be lots you need to learn, and there's not like a magical list of everything you need to learn,
Of
but there's going to be a
course.
lot of business stuff you're going to need to not ignore, and be able to
Yes.
budget, and being able to um, determine like all those boring accounting things that I don't even want to get into because it's not very exciting.
I
But yeah,
know.
that's definitely a big part of it that I know a lot of artists don't have any sense for, and having a plan in terms of how you spend money on your business, investing in equipment and materials, like getting a
Mm-hmm.
printer, getting like a silhouette cutter if you're making stickers, getting an iPad to draw on. I know people who like will put those expenses off because they see it as spending a lot of money. But
Mm-hmm.
if that item could help you generate more income, you it's not a bad purchase.
Exactly. And on that same realm, uh I feel like people need to realize that you should be separating part of the income you're making from your work to
Yes.
invest back
Yes.
into your
Also,
work.
don't use your personal business personal bank account for your business. Just don't do that. Get a separate bank account for your business. You should.
That's a good
It's
one.
it's basically it's basic accounting principles, and it kind of baffles me how many people don't realize that. But then I'm like, oh yeah, they weren't accounting majors. But
Yeah,
so just
exactly.
do that.
But now you're here to
Yeah,
tell
do
them.
that, and it just makes everything way easier to keep track of.
Oh yeah, because then if
You
you,
don't have to
for
separate your
example, if you make
Chipotle receipts from your materials purchases when you go through your bank account.
exactly, then when tax time comes, you have everything nice and neat all spelled out for
Mhm.
you right there, what you spend on what, and you know that everything on this account was spent on your
Definitely,
business.
definitely. Um, there's also issues of like liability when you combine your personal account with your business account. I'm not going
Mm-hmm.
to give any legal advice, but I'm just word of warning.
No,
Um,
definitely something good to keep in
yeah,
mind.
and I think a lot of artists, I think the biggest thing, the biggest pitfall I see a lot of artists fall into, is they don't understand that when they're a small business owner as an artist, you you're not just an artist. You have to be like a used car salesman sometimes. You have to do some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed it so much the first time I did a convention because all these artists are sitting at their tables where they're supposed to be selling stuff and what are they doing? They're sitting at their table drawing and they're like not really talking to anyone who comes to their table and people
Mm-hmm.
don't feel very welcome and they leave. And meanwhile, like when I as much as possible, like I try to stand up and like talk to people and engage with them. And yes, I'm an introvert, but like I work from home, so I don't have to talk to people on a regular basis. So I save all that energy and I get it out for the month at the
Mm-hmm.
convention. And it's work. It's not supposed to be comfortable or easy all the time. You're gonna
Exactly.
have to do some things that are out of your comfort zone, and pretending to be an extrovert is part of that when it comes to selling your work. You
Mm-hmm.
can't just so many people say like I just want my work to speak for itself. I mean, God,
But it doesn't have a mouth,
wouldn't we
so
all like that? Wouldn't we all just like to do good work and
I
get paid
know.
money for it? But that's just not how the world works, and you need to get over it. You need to put on your big girl panties, and you need to talk to people, and you need to sell, and you need to
It's so
hustle your
true.
shit.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, while art as a career as an artist is everybody's dream, yeah, you can't forget that it's still
Yes,
work.
there's just as much business as art. Like it is not like 90% art and 10% business. It is 50-50.
Completely, or else you wouldn't be making money off
Correct.
of
You
it.
would just have a bunch of artwork that's not doing well for you. And I think that's the reason I see so many people who are amazing artists not doing as well as they could be doing because they don't know how to monetize it properly.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, like we said before, it stems from that fear of experimenting because it could lead to
Oh yeah, I
failure.
am a world's biggest advocate for experimenting. I'm like, just try it. I always say that, like, especially when it comes to art, like I create like an eye doctor where I'm like A or B, B or C, C or D. I have like a
Mm-hmm.
million versions of something, and we'll see which one looks the best at the end. Like some people are just like they
Yeah.
don't want to experiment. They're so afraid of failing that they don't experiment, and some you don't experimenting helps you get the best results.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and I feel like that's the basis of art, anyways.
Yeah.
What is good art without
Yeah,
experimenting?
it's like it's not it doesn't have to be like something painful. It can be fun. You're just like it's like, if you like shopping and try on clothes, it's like that. If you like, going to the grocery store and tasting every sample, it's like that.
Exactly. And I guess to wrap things up with a fun question, what are some colors that you love but you never or rarely get to use in your
Okay,
art?
so I have a very like I think you just opened a whole can of worms. You thought you were asking a brief question and really you're like getting ready for a monologue. Okay, so like color, I love color
Yeah.
and hate color at the same time. It stresses me out so much to the point that I spend so much time like fussing over color in my artwork that in my everyday life I'm like forget about it. So all I wear is like black and white. My clothes, that's all I own. It's like black, white, and gray. I don't want to deal with color. I know everything matches with everything.
Yeah.
So I'm like IRL goth, and then like all my art is like pastel and cute. And
Yeah, that's so
I,
interesting.
so it's like I definitely love black and gray and dark stuff, but I don't, it's just like it doesn't fit into my aesthetic as well. Like I have a very
Mhm.
separate art aesthetic from like my personal aesthetic of what I wear. So
Yeah, that's really
it's really
interesting.
weird because like it's for me it's like oh yeah people can draw like cute goth stuff, but to me it just like if it's gonna be cute I want to make it as cute as possible and throw all the cute colors on it. It's just like making it black and white just like
Yeah,
it's inherently limiting it. So I
it's
guess it would
true.
like I almost never ever use black in my illustrations. Like even for line art I'll use some tone of a color. So it
Mm.
probably would
Yeah,
be
I
black.
noticed that.
Like I would like to use black, but I'm like it's just not a cute color.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you're like you go against what people think where
Oh, you
like
meet me and they're like, "Are you the artist?"
people look like they're
Yeah, I
art.
don't at all. So
That must be such a cool juxtaposition seeing you like at your
it kind
booths.
of like I kind of like forced the tie in though because my business card is an illustration of me and I have green hair, and so there's the green
Mhm.
hair, and they seem like so you must be this person. Like, what
Yeah.
happened with your clothes? Did you lose your suitcase, etc.?
That's so funny. Oh man, I had such a good time talking to you
Time goes
today.
fast.
Um it It was so great to hear about your business and what an interesting journey you had. Because, like you said, it's wasn't exactly linear, but the great thing is that that can show other people that just because you've been doing things unrelated to what you want to do doesn't mean you can't use that.
No, you can come at it from like the most unexpected place and get there eventually. Like I was not preparing all my life to do this.
Completely true. And here you are, making a living off of it despite you not your whole background being completely related to it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, where can people find you if they want to see your work?
Thankfully, it's pretty consistent. My pretty much every social media platform, my handle is iamlunasol, all one word, no spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my shop is shopiamlunasol.com. I'm primarily on Instagram. I have a Twitter, and I'm old and I don't know how to use it.
Same. I don't get
Uh,
Twitter.
yeah, so if you go to my Instagram or my shop, they'll have links to everything on Patreon. My pin club is I Am Luna Soul.
Awesome.
Pretty
And
consistent.
I'll make sure to also include all those links in the shop notes and on the website.
Awesome.
But thank you so much for joining us here today. Wasn't that just such a fun interview? I loved talking to Felice. She's just so honest and funny and very like blunt, but in such a helpful way. Like you can really get a sense of the fact that she's speaking very honestly and from the heart. And I really appreciate that in a person, especially when we're trying to kind of learn about an artist's process and their career. And it's just nice to hear someone who is very no frills, very cut to the chase. So, why don't I cut to the chase and give you the 3 takeaways for today's episode? All 3 takeaways really flow nicely with each other to create kind of one general theme and big overarching lesson. The first one is that you have to give yourself permission to start and fail. What this means is you need to know and understand that it's okay for you to go ahead and start a new endeavor. If you've never sold your illustrations and you're scared of how it's going to go, don't be scared. Just let yourself begin. Let yourself know that if you fail, it's okay, because we all have our failures when we try something new. It's inevitable, and you just need to tell yourself and believe that that is completely and totally okay and necessary if you want to move forward in your career. And piggybacking off of that, number 2 is failing isn't bad. Failing teaches you things. More often than not, when you fail, that's when you learn your biggest lessons and you learn them in a way that sticks. I mean, think about it. Think back to a time you failed something or you messed something up so miserably that you never did that again. Failing can often be a good thing to teach you those essential life lessons in not only art, but in other aspects of your life as well. And number 3, if you want to do something like designing pins, for example, you just have to do it. Even if you don't know how to do it, just do it anyways. You can only learn through action, And you live in a time where Google can answer pretty much any question you have. So why don't you just use it? Use Google. Ask other people questions. Figure it out as you go along. It'll be fine, I promise. You're going to mess things up along the way, but who cares? As time goes on, you'll get better and better. But none of that can happen if you don't start, and if you don't just start and do it. Just do it. Just do it. You know? Just do it. Wasn't that nice? I kind of like how those 3 takeaways really fit together very nicely in this episode. But yeah, if you liked this episode, you feel like you learned a lot, or just you had a good time here with me, there's a couple things you can do. One of the things that is super helpful for a new podcast like mine is rating and reviewing, especially on Apple Podcasts, but whichever app you're using to listen to me right now. Leave a rating and leave a little short review telling people how you feel about the podcast, because the more ratings and reviews you guys leave, the more chances I have at connecting with more artists around the world, and so we can all move forward in our journeys together. Another thing you can do is, if you want to kind of get some extra stuff out of the podcast, follow me on Instagram at The Art Journey Pod. I post usually previews of the episodes over there, little sound bites, quotes. I might start giving you previews to like episodes in advance, like more than the day of. So if you're kind of interested in stuff like that, you should probably follow me on Instagram. And then on Instagram, my personal one is in the bio. So if you're curious about my own personal artwork, you can totally follow me on Instagram too at ALEKSAGOSTO. Yeah, I spelled it because my name is spelled weird. It's pronounced Alex Agosto. And I also have a website, alexagosto.com. And then I forgot to tell you that the podcast does have a website too. You can find all the show notes all together in one convenient location on the website, which is theartjourneypodcast.com. And you can even listen to the episodes there. How convenient is that? But anyways, I will stop blabbing. You've heard enough of me this week. But until next week, when you get to listen to my voice all over again, I hope you have an amazing week. Work on your art, stay inspired, and I will see you again next time. Bye.